Hey y'all, welcome back. And
Hey,
so
hey.
you are tuning in for Two Therapists and a Cocktail. This is our first episode. So welcome.
Yes. I'm so excited. Woo
I hope
woo.
you have your drinks ready. So today we're going to be talking about family, boundaries, and how they need to back up off of us.
Yes.
You know, I
Yes.
feel like we all have that one family member who does not really understand boundaries. So today we're going to be talking about
Yes.
it. Okay?
Yes. It's a must, especially with the holidays.
It
Thanksgiving
is.
is
It
coming.
is.
Christmas is like almost here. Like goodness, what a year. And so this is an awesome topic to kick off the holidays.
Yes. And so I guess like the first thing that like we should really talk about is like what are boundaries? So like what do you consider like are your boundaries?
Well, when I think about boundaries, I think about it's a way for people to know how to treat you,
Mhm.
and it's you learning how to say no. A lot of people have issues with saying no when it comes to our family. They
Mhm.
feel like, oh, what, that's my mama or that's my Uncle
Mhm.
Joe. You know how he do. But I think
Mhm.
it's important for us to be able to say no. And also, boundaries help us to feel safe,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think it's not just like about like just having like physical boundaries. Like a lot of times like you have to think about emotionally and mentally and all of those things. And
Yes.
like you said it
Yeah.
serves to protect you. And
Yes.
if you're always around someone who makes you anxious, who makes you angry and all those things, maybe it's time for you to start activating some of those boundaries. And
Yes.
like you said, it is so hard to do it with family members because a lot of times, like, we'll, be in this denial state of mind, like, oh, well, that's just so and so. He just get down like that. Like
Yeah.
he been like that. But just because he's been like that doesn't mean that that's okay. Like, it's not
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
No one has ever put a good boundary against him. So now is the time to
That's
start
right.
and
Right.
do that.
And boundaries are a good way too to define like your role in the relationship. you know
Mm-hmm.
um and a lot of times like the lines are very skewed, those roles are very skewed.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been a therapist for over 10 years now. I've had people come in and talk about how you know as kids it's kind of like they've had to have this parent role,
Mm-hmm.
and having like being the older sibling and having to discipline your other siblings, like
Yeah.
that's a problem. That's a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
And then when you
Yeah.
say, well, mama, I don't like this, I don't like that, your mama gonna say, you a child, you need to stay in a child's place.
That part.
That's a
That
problem.
part. But if you had not have put them in that role in the first place as a extension of a parent, then they would not have
Yes,
be they wouldn't be coming for you in that way. So it's like
exactly.
you play this game like when someone like wants to set this really like strong boundary against you, then all of a sudden you're offended. And it's like, oh,
Right.
wait. Like, no, I don't and it's not so much that it's going to make the other person so extremely uncomfortable. It's the
Yeah.
fact that this person doesn't want to shift. They don't want to see you in a different light.
Right.
And they don't want to put
Right.
respect on what it is that you're trying to accomplish with them.
Right.
Whereas it could possibly make a stronger relationship.
Yeah.
And that really is what it does most of the time.
Yeah.
Like people who want to treat you illy because they don't want to respect your boundary, or I don't want you to call me at this time. I don't want you to ask me for money anymore.
Right. Right.
And or we don't talk about these things. Like it's fine.
Yeah.
Like all of these
Yeah.
things are reasons why you have to have boundaries with people.
Yes, yes. Especially like we were just talking earlier about the holidays. The holidays seem to be the best time to
Mm-hmm.
incorporate your boundaries
Yeah.
because that's the time where you have family members that want to be all up in your business. They
Mm-hmm.
want
Why
to
you
know
not
that
married
you
yet? Why you don't have any more kids?
okay.
Why you always bringing this man around?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They want to know
Mm-hmm.
all of that. And then
All of your business.
sometimes too there's the conversation of, well, I was traumatized as a kid. Like, how do we even have that? That's a whole nother podcast. But how do we even
Okay.
have a conversation, about that if your family members don't want to talk about it? Or when you try to
Yeah.
talk about it and they don't want to hear that, you know?
And I think that and you brought up a really good point. Like, what do you do like when your family members don't want to talk about it?
Yeah,
And when you're thinking about putting in place these boundaries, the work
right.
doesn't just fall on the other person. The work is really for you to do because
Yes.
it's served to protect you. You
Yeah,
shouldn't be putting these boundaries in place because it's so dependent on someone else to make it work. Like, if you're doing that, that's not going to work. It's never
right.
going to work like that because it's putting too much responsibility on the other person to make some necessary changes.
Right.
And that's unrealistic, and you're setting
Very
yourself up for
unrealistic.
failure when you do
Very.
that.
That's right. Yeah. So let me
Mhm.
ask you this. What are some signs that you need to have boundaries with family? What does that look like
Yeah.
for you? Yeah.
Yeah, I think when they make you uncomfortable with your questioning,
Yeah.
and it's just like, why do you do that? And it doesn't matter. Like, I was listening to Bishop T.D. Jakes, and
Oh,
he was
yes.
saying like, just because it's family don't mean we're kin. And
Okay.
that really resonated with me because I think
Yes.
so often we think, oh, well, that's my mom. Oh, well, that's my sister. It's okay if they ask me these questions. If those questions bring up anxiety or they make you sad or they make you angry, or you're
Yes.
having like all of these negative feelings surrounding some of the statements people say to you,
Yeah.
that is your sign right there that
Right.
there's a boundary that needs to be in place. Like,
Yeah.
you don't owe anyone pieces of your life. It
That's
doesn't
right.
matter what relationship you have with them by blood. That doesn't
Right.
matter. Like,
Right.
you need to focus on yourself and all of the things that come up for you when you're around a certain person.
That's right. And another thing, just to add on top of that, when you need boundaries, when you feel that in your body, when you feel that in
Mhm.
your spirit. Like, if you're
Mhm.
when you get around your family members and they're asking you to do things that you don't want to do, and
Mhm.
you're there and you feeling it in your chest, you feeling it in your back, you having a headache, you having anxiety, that's when you
Mhm.
know you need boundaries. When you know that every time
Mhm.
you go around these family members or this family member and you have anger and you feel overwhelmed and you feel
Mhm.
resentment, you need
Mhm.
boundaries. Your body
Hello.
is always going to tell you that.
Mhm.
Always. You know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know we're drinking wine right now, but if your family member makes you say, "Ooh, baby, I need a drink before I go over,"
Okay.
maybe it's maybe it's time. And like, you need to know. And that is also when maybe you need to have a physical boundary. Like,
Yes.
maybe you don't show up when all the family members are about to be there. Like, maybe
Right.
you show up like when the dinner's almost over. Like, you just going
Okay.
in, say hello, and
Yeah.
you did.
Yeah.
And you also need to do that work yourself. Like, that's not going to
Yes.
happen overnight. Like,
Right.
a lot of times you're going to be like, "Ooh, but everyone's going to be mad at me." Okay.
Okay.
Well,
They'll be all right.
is it worth you having this inner torment every time you're over
Right.
there though?
Right. Is it worth sacrificing yourself?
That
It's
part.
not worth you sacrificing yourself. And
Yeah.
another two signs that you could tell when you need boundaries is if you feel burnt out being around these people. If you start avoiding
Whew.
phone calls, you start avoiding interactions, you don't want nothing with
Mhm.
them. That's how you know you need boundaries. And
Yeah.
that could look that's very it could look different for everybody. My boundary
Yeah.
might be like, this year I ain't coming to the family function. I'm
That
not
part.
coming for the holidays.
Yeah.
Or another person boundary is, if my mama asks me this question one more time about if I'm gonna have when am I gonna have kids or when am I gonna get married, I'm gonna tell
Mhm.
her with love that that's not
Mhm.
okay. That
Mhm.
it'll happen when it's supposed to happen. But
Mhm.
rushing me, it's
Mhm.
just that's not helpful. You know?
Mhm. And I'm
Yeah.
glad you said that with love. You can tell a person back up off me with love. You can
Mm-hmm.
do that. I think a lot of times people shy away from putting in place boundaries is because they think you
Yeah.
have to get reckless. You don't have to
Yeah.
get reckless to tell someone to back up off me. Like you can just say, "Hey, love, I
Yes.
feel uncomfortable when you ask
Yes.
me questions like that, and it makes me
Yeah.
not want to share any other person of my life with you." Like you can
Right.
say that. Now,
Yeah.
I have a rule within myself. Now, am I
Yeah.
saying this as therapeutic advice? No.
Yeah.
I'm saying this as a person who happens to be a therapist.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to get more firm with your words
Yes.
if people don't take you seriously. But you
Yeah.
also need to know, am I contradicting myself sometimes when I say
Okay.
things? Am I saying one thing and I'm acting another way? Because if you're
Right.
doing that, then you also need to realize maybe that's the reason why nobody's taking me seriously, because
Right.
every time I say stop asking me for money please, and then here they come about 3 weeks later, and you're
Right.
like, well, I mean, it has been 3 weeks since they asked me, I can just give it to them this one time.
Right.
You're
Right.
contradicting yourself because
Right.
they're being conditioned to say, okay, so I don't need to ask her at the first of the month, I need to ask her at the last of the month, then she's a little
Right.
friendlier.
Right.
No, you need to start showing people how they need to treat you.
That's right. And another thing about boundaries is you teach people how to treat you.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you just said, that example, if they know that they can come to you for money and you're not going to say no, oh,
Mm-hmm.
baby, they going to keep coming at you
They gonna
because
keep
they
coming.
already know that, oh,
Yeah.
if I call
Yeah.
Ashley, if I call Andrea, I know she's going to give me some money.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I'm gonna keep pressing her because I know she's gonna give
Mm-hmm.
it to me. But if
Mm-hmm.
you teach them that no, you will
Yeah.
not get any money
No.
from me moving forward.
No.
I don't care if you
Yeah.
ask, I don't care if you cry,
Yeah.
you're not
Yeah.
getting any money. They're gonna learn that, oh, okay, I can't go to her
Yeah.
no more. I can't do
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
a lot of times too, what I get from like some of my clients that have issues with boundaries is they feel bad about saying no. They
Ooh.
feel guilty
Mm-hmm.
about saying no.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when
Mm-hmm.
you know you need to have a boundary if that's what you're feeling. Every time you feel
Mm-hmm.
guilty, every time you feel bad about it, that's telling you, honey, you need a boundary. You need to
Yeah.
set it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, okay, you feel bad. Mourn that. Because that is
Yeah.
a part of the process. Like, mourn that. Mourn that you feel bad about it. But
Yeah.
don't let that ricochet you back into bad habits. Because
Yes.
you will start feeling more comfortable as you see that people are respecting that boundary that you put in place.
That's right.
And don't feel, because you feel bad, don't feel like, oh my God, I have to over explain why I need this boundary. Don't.
Right.
And don't.
Right.
Just say, I'm not giving you money no more. Oh
Yeah.
my God, why? Are you hitting hard times?
Mm,
I don't want to do that anymore. You
yeah.
don't owe anyone an explanation of something that's going to give you peace.
That's right. That's right.
Don't do it.
You don't need
Don't
to
do
do
it.
that. You know.
No.
And the
Mm-mm.
best time to set a boundary is right now. It's not tomorrow. It's not a
Today.
year from now. It's not a month
Today.
from now. Set it today.
Today.
That's
Today.
the best time is at the time when they try you, because family
Mm.
members try you. That is the time to set the boundary right there and
Now,
then.
see you. So, see, you brought up a good point, because
Yeah.
I am in the ministry of cut them off. If they don't, if it's getting real disrespectful, bye. I will
Chop
change your
chop.
name in my phone. I will forget you in my mind.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
so what? So what would you do? So I know I am team
Yeah.
cut them off. So what do
Yeah.
you do when someone is like just still disrespecting that boundary?
Well, this is how I look at it. Let me give them the benefit of the doubt. And what I mean by that is let me state my boundary. Let me uphold that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, we also have to understand that we're complex people, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
takes us a while to learn a new habit. and learn people
Mm-hmm.
boundaries. So at least give them a chance to
Yeah.
redeem themselves. But after I've said it once,
Mm-hmm.
said it twice,
Mm-hmm.
maybe even a third time, I've been patient with you, okay? Because I understand,
Yes.
like I just said, that people are complex, and you're still doing it,
Mm-hmm.
honey, there needs to be consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And the consequence might be
Wrap
if you
it up.
call me one more time asking me for money, I'm not going to answer. That might be the
Yeah.
consequence. Or the
Yeah.
consequence is I'm not coming for the holidays this year. Y'all might have to see me next
Yeah.
year. Maybe next year y'all might get it right. But this year, I'm not coming. And that
Yeah.
and so consequences, you may have to use them. Use your consequences. And also tell them that too. When you're
Yeah.
laying your boundary down, let them know this is my boundary.
Yeah.
And if you keep doing this, these are the consequences. That way they can't be
Yeah.
shocked or shook.
Yeah.
They already know what you said is
Mm-hmm.
what you said, right?
Yeah.
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 Hmm.
Yeah. And I think when you create these consequences, be realistic with yourself.
Yes.
Like, if it's going to be too much for you to not come for the holiday, don't even throw that out there, because you're
Right.
like the boy who cried wolf. Like, I'm not coming for the holiday, but then you show up with the mac and cheese. Like, stop it.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
don't do that. Like, if you
Yeah.
can't hold to your word, they're not either. They're not going to trust
Right.
that you mean what you say.
Right. And you kind of gotta
Hmm.
you gotta look at it as I am setting the example. I am setting the example of how I want to be treated. So, like you just
Yeah,
said, the example, if you say you ain't coming and you show up with mac and cheese, what example are you giving?
exactly.
That they
Like, oh, there
can
she
walk all
go,
over
running
you.
her mouth again.
Right,
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I think by far. So when we're talking about like people like disrespecting boundaries and not being able to put them in place, I think that a lot of people sometimes have problems putting boundaries in place with their parents.
yeah,
I think it's very
yeah,
challenging. And
yeah.
so because there's an element where you're like, I have to be respectful to my parents, right?
Right.
But even like with that, if you're an adult,
Mm,
you and granted, this is really painting the quote unquote perfect parent child relationship, right? Like, this isn't
yeah,
talking about like layers of trauma or anything like that, or having any other things
yeah,
interjecting in this relationship, right? You should be able to have a conversation with your parents to share, like, hey, I really want to put this in place because I want to have a better relationship with you, but
right.
sometimes when I'm around you, you make me
Yeah,
uncomfortable with some of your questions. Now,
yeah,
I have a dad who jokes all of the time. And
yeah,
so you might really need to say something like, "Hey, like, I get we play around a lot, but low key this kind of hurt my feelings. Like, please
right,
don't do that. Like,
right,
it makes me uncomfortable."
right. So I
Yeah.
think along with boundaries is really you learning how to be assertive. You
Yeah.
can't be passive aggressive because that ain't gonna work because they're not gonna get a
Mhm.
clue like you think they will.
No.
So
No.
being assertive and being very verbal is gonna be the best thing that you can do for yourself, right?
Yeah.
So that they could know how you're feeling and what you're thinking. Now, by
Yeah.
all means, I'm not saying being disrespectful,
Mhm.
right? But like you just said, like, hey, dad, I get that, you like to joke around. I like to joke around too. But when you said this, it really hurt my
Mhm.
feelings. So, like,
Mhm.
how can we work on that? Like, that's how you would
Yeah.
approach your dad. But not like,
Yeah.
you MFer, don't effing talk to me like that and joking
Yeah.
around.
Like,
You People gonna have their walls up and their guard up now.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Because if you're
yeah.
approaching them like you're ready for war, expect a war.
Yes. Right.
Expect it not to go well.
Right. Yeah.
Expect that.
Yeah.
And and going back to the showing people how they need to treat you, you need to show up in that conversation the same way you would want someone else to approach you if they
Exactly.
were having a problem with a boundary that you were stepping over.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That is
Hmm.
so true.
Yeah.
You want to treat people the way you want to be treated. So if
Yeah.
somebody came at you like that, you gonna want to fight.
Hmm. Okay.
You
And
gonna
be
want to
ready.
fight and be
And be ready.
not
And
be
be ready.
ready.
Like, okay. Okay.
Yeah, let
I
me
see
take
what
me.
we doing.
All right,
I
okay.
see what we doing today.
Let's get it together now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
another thing, like when we're thinking about like these family boundaries, is some of them are so deep within the foundation of our family. And like what I
Yeah,
mean by that is like
yeah,
oftentimes like you have like that Uncle Pookie that everybody defends. Like he been in and out of jail and he be like doing weird stuff or anything like that. And people
yeah,
defend him.
yeah,
But if he makes someone uncomfortable, they're quick to be like, oh no. So, what do you do
yeah.
when discomfort is just within the roots
Mm,
of the family? Like, how do you do that?
yeah.
Like, do you potentially go against all of your family members? Like,
Mm,
what do you do? Because sometimes it
yeah,
is very lonely and
yeah,
very isolating to
yeah,
be like, hey, I don't like this. I know
yeah.
everyone defends him, but I don't like it. And sometimes they could get mad at you. It's like, why you do
Right,
that? Why did you say that?
right,
Even
right,
if, ding dong, they have had trauma
right,
connected to Uncle Pookie as well.
right, right. I think the
Mm-hmm.
first step is really checking in with yourself. So like we were saying at the very beginning, you can feel that in your body.
Mm-hmm.
You could feel that something isn't right. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's okay not to subject yourself to that. And if you don't even
Mm-hmm.
feel comfortable like talking to Uncle Pookie in this instance, maybe
Mm-hmm.
tell another family member that you trust, like, hey, this is what's happening for me. I don't really feel
Mm-hmm.
comfortable yet coming around because he's here. Like, I might need some time to just get myself together, you know?
Yeah.
Or maybe the next step is maybe Uncle Pookie shouldn't be invited to Thanksgiving or for the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's
Mm-hmm.
involving some physical abuse, sexual
Mm-hmm.
abuse,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, there's a lot of people that have been, experienced that where you have a
Yeah.
family member that did something like that. They're welcome to the family function,
Yep.
and
Yep.
everybody's acting like nothing happened.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Everyone knows the secret. Everyone knows the secret.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So
And
it's
won't
like,
hold him accountable at all. Yeah.
right. So it's like, it's important for you to take care of yourself in those moments. Be
Mm-hmm.
honest with yourself that this is what happened, and
Yeah.
that, you know what, I need time. I need time to
Yeah.
heal. And that may
Yeah.
look like I just, in order to heal, it's not that I'm not going to talk to certain family members, but right now I just can't be around all the family because it's
Yeah.
like they're
It's too
entertaining this
much.
person
It's too
being
much.
here. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think it's hard for family members to respect someone's new boundary that they're trying to put in place?
Mm. I I think it's hard because when it's family, you don't want to hurt people's feelings. You don't want to
Mm.
have an argument. You don't want to feel you're like you're the black sheep. You don't want to stir it up,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but we may need to stir it up so that
Yeah.
there can be healing and so that we can move
Yeah.
forward. If we continue
Yeah.
in this cycle, this toxic cycle of the same thing, nothing is
Mm-hmm.
ever going to get better,
No.
you know?
No.
So I think
Yeah.
that's why people are afraid to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's hard for family members to respect people's new boundaries. It's for
Yeah.
like a number of reasons. Like, I think it's lack of maturity
Yeah.
because not everyone is on this emotional, mental journey that you're
Yeah.
on. And some people
Yeah.
are really stuck into like, oh, well, we just push that down, or we
Yeah.
compartmentalize that, or oh, baby, we don't talk about that. Like, there is
Yeah.
so much to be grateful for in this season, a blessing. Like people aren't ready. And
Yeah.
sometimes when we are ready to start making changes in our lives that are going to
Yes.
be successful and are going to make us feel good, some people don't like that. And they're like, why
Right.
are you changing up? Like you're acting
Right.
brand new.
Right.
And that comes from a place of lack of growth, like within
Oh yeah.
themselves.
Oh yeah.
So definitely, listeners out there, don't pay attention to those things. Like continue to focus on
Right.
your own growth and what you need. I think
That's
another
right.
reason why people like don't respect new boundaries is because now they can't treat you in the same way that they once could, and now it's out there.
Right. Right.
Because once you say like, "Hey,
Right.
I'm not going to let you talk to me like that anymore," those words are always around. Like y'all can
Yes.
resolve it, y'all cannot
Yeah.
resolve it. It's never going to change the fact that you said you don't need to talk to me like that anymore.
Right.
It's out there. It's out there
Yep.
forever.
Yep.
And now they can ignore it on the
Yeah.
surface level, right? But
Yep.
unconsciously, subconsciously, it's in their mind. It's in
Yes.
there. And now
Yep.
they know that. And
Yep.
now they have to shift. Now you force
Right.
them to shift and
Right.
approach you in a different manner because they know that you're going to hold them accountable for that. And I think that's
Right.
hard. Like some people are comfortable with the way that their life is. And I think
Yes.
it's hard to respect that sometimes.
Yes. And I think that that goes back to this idea that the family, when we're first born, there's a culture that begins, right? So there's this is the culture of the family that unknowingly we are abusing each other, then that's all we know until
Yeah.
somebody says, "Hey, I'm not okay with this. Something needs to
Hmm.
change." And that's hard when
Yeah.
you're breaking the culture of the family. Everybody is so
Yeah.
used to talking to each other a certain way or doing each other all kinds of ways that
Hmm.
you're scared to be the one to say no, not anymore. So I think
Yeah.
that's what makes it really hard
Yeah.
for family members too, to respect that now you have boundaries. Oh, now you want to break the culture of the family
Hmm.
when this is what we've
Hmm.
been doing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think and it's interesting that you said like this is what we've always been doing. Like
Yeah.
sometimes we get so stuck in that, like
Yeah.
stuck in that hurt. Like
Yes.
sometimes people are just like, you know what? I'm not even gonna say like that I need more because it's never gonna change. They're
Yeah.
always gonna be like this person. And that fear will leave you living in torment. Like
Oh
if
yeah.
you were around somebody and they make you
Yeah.
uncomfortable, say that. Especially if everybody else can see it. Say that.
Right.
Say that
Right.
and move on. Like,
Yeah.
at least put it out there. And I think a lot of times, like when we tell ourselves, like, oh, things are never going to change, it's always going to be
Yeah.
like this,
Yeah.
we're actually afraid that things will change
Right.
and
Right.
that the person might apologize because like
Yeah.
when we harbor like unforgiveness, like when we harbor like
Yeah.
resentment and all of those things, we're keeping that person on the hook and we're
Oh
like,
yeah.
ooh, yeah, I get to be mad at them, ooh, I'm gonna
Yeah.
roll my eyes when I see them, ooh, I'm gonna be sassy, ooh, I'm gonna
Yeah.
snap on them if they say
Yeah.
anything crazy to me.
Yeah.
But when you decide you want to forgive somebody and you want to say, you know what, actually you have impacted me like this, then you have to let it go. And
Right.
sometimes we don't want to let stuff go.
Right. And as you
We
say
don't want
that,
to let it go.
Andrea, right.
Hmm.
And as you say that, I think about this quote, and this quote really chin checked me a few years ago. And it
Mm.
goes like this: holding on to a grudge is like uh you drinking the poison and expecting the other person to die.
Hello.
It ain't they don't even know that you mad.
They don't know why.
They,
They don't know. They don't know why you're mad. They don't.
right.
They have no clue. They have no
Have
clue. And
no
then
idea.
you keep being mad every time they keep carrying on. That's because you
Yes.
have told them nothing,
Yes.
and they
Nothing
keep
at all.
overstepping that boundary because it
Right.
doesn't exist. Because you
Right.
hadn't said anything.
Right. So you all mad, you resentful,
Mm-hmm.
You don't want
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with them, but you haven't given them a chance to redeem themselves.
Nothing. You said nothing. And
Right.
they're looking like, why are they always in a bad mood every time I come around? Because they know nothing.
Exactly.
They know nothing.
Exactly.
And so the the thing is on you. It's on
Yeah.
you to do all of these steps. Like, I know we're
Yeah.
talking about like how people might disrespect your boundary, right? But you have to take the first step and say, hey, you make me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
expect anybody to read your mind.
That's
They
right.
can read
There's no
maybe your
mind readers.
nonverbal cues, but they
Yeah.
can't read your mind
Right. Right.
at
I
all.
could think of many a times, right? Not verbalizing how I felt and what I was thinking, and have a whole attitude all day.
Mm,
And people are
mm.
wondering, what is wrong with her?
What's wrong
But
with her?
it's because I wasn't being assertive in that moment and saying, okay, you said this and it really bothered me. You said this and
Yeah,
it really hurt my feelings. You know, like it's
yeah,
important to let the other person know or other people know how you're feeling, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
But my question for you, Andrea, is so we're talking about family, right? So
Hmm.
there's certain family members that you are close with that you feel safe to have those
Hmm.
conversations. But what about if it's a family member that you don't feel safe having that conversation?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that that is very tricky, and I think that
yeah,
does come from doing a lot of the work yourself.
hmm,
Because when we're talking about like being assertive, that's not a easy feat for a lot of people. Like, some people get like really uncomfortable because I think that there are some people on this earth that are just wordsmiths. Like,
yeah,
they have a way of just like confusing you. Like, you can come into the
yeah,
conversation knowing like, I'ma tell them the sky is blue, and you walk away from that conversation saying, you know what, I think the sky is actually yellow, and you're like, what
yeah,
happened? I came in with a plan. And I
yeah,
think that when you know that you have to establish a boundary with someone who makes you very uncomfortable, you need to do a lot of work first. Like, you
oh
need to like really think to yourself like, okay, why is this beneficial for me to
yeah, right,
set this boundary with this person? Because
right,
if you see the benefits in it, then that means that you can be invested in that change. But if
right,
you don't even do that first step of saying, you know what, why will this better me? If you
yeah,
don't do that, then anything that person could say, you'll probably be like, yeah, you right. I was tripping. That was on me.
yeah,
Do that first step first. And
right,
then after that, start talking to somebody that you trust. Like, say
right,
like, hey, like, I really want to have this conversation like with this person, but I'm
right,
nervous about it. And I don't know how it's going to go. Like, I don't know if they're
yeah,
going to yell at me. I don't know if they're going to like tell somebody like another side of the story, or if they're going to twist my words around. Like, can we
right,
practice? Like, can you give me some feedback? Like, am I being clear? Because I think we all have like some person in our life, and it's not even like maybe a family member, maybe it's a
right,
friend who can
right,
say, you know what, that don't make no sense what you're trying to say. Like, try something else.
right,
Like, bounce that off of people. And then,
yeah,
like, once you've done that and you've
yeah,
really like worked up the courage, it's okay not to have that conversation with someone by yourself.
right,
Maybe bring somebody else into that conversation who has
yeah,
your back and who can be mutual. Like,
right,
have it be a mutual. Let them be
right,
Switzerland, and just
right,
say like, hey, like, I think what they're trying to say is this.
yeah,
Is that right? Is that what you were trying to say? Like, because
right,
sometimes having someone else in that conversation makes
oh
it a
yeah,
little bit easier.
yeah,
But that
yeah,
person who is also going to be joining that conversation, they need to let it be known to that other person who you're having an issue with. Be like, I'm on both of y'all side. Like, I
yeah,
want both of you to win. Like,
right,
I'm not trying to like, we're not trying to team up on you or anything like that.
right,
And also, when you're
hmm,
having very difficult conversations, one,
hmm,
it's okay to set a standard. in that
Right.
conversation and say, hey, we're not going to be cussing at each other. We're not
That's
going to
right.
be interrupting each other in this conversation. And if those are things that are going to be present when I'm
Right.
speaking to you, then we're done. Then
Right.
we're done with this conversation. Like, it
Right.
is okay to walk away from a conversation if someone's going to be disrespecting you.
Right.
Because
I totally
because
agree with
because
that.
at this point, we're done.
Yeah.
What? Are we,
Yeah.
why are we doing this? Why are we
Yeah.
doing this?
Yeah.
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 Because when we don't need to be enemies, and I think that's it right
No.
there. If I'm going to be looking at you as the enemy, we're not going to get anywhere. That means you're not even going to hear what I have to say. So
Yeah.
I am in agreement with you. Having those ground rules before we fully have this conversation is going to be
Mhm.
important. And yeah, I agree with you. It could be somebody that's neutral, whether that's a therapist, whether that's another
Mhm.
family member, or maybe another
Mhm.
friend that knows the both of you. I think that could be
Yeah.
very beneficial. You know,
Yeah.
it's all about
Yeah.
growth. We're trying to grow
That
here.
part.
You're trying to
That
grow
part.
as an individual with your boundaries, and then
Mhm.
growing together as family members.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think like and that can be a very scary conversation. So I would
yeah.
even like suggest like don't rush into a conversation like that.
Right.
You don't have to. Like you
Yeah,
can really like do those other steps that we talked about and start like distancing yourself. Like start having a physical boundary where maybe you don't show up to certain areas or certain events where that person is going
right,
to be where you don't really know how to engage with them yet. You
right.
can do that.
Yeah,
And if that conversation doesn't go well the first time, think back on it, reflect, and then
yes,
try it again. And if that
yes.
person still is not being receptive, like I said, I'm in the ministry of
Cutting.
sometimes you gotta cut somebody off and just be like, you know what?
Yeah, yeah.
Stay up.
Right,
Like,
right.
do you and be
Yep,
blessed. Like,
yep.
it's okay. And I think that that is a really harsh reality for a
Yeah,
lot of people. And it's like,
yes.
oh my God, but how am I gonna cut off my cousin? How am I gonna cut off my sister?
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
But you might have to.
yeah,
You might have
yeah.
to. And it is okay to have a conversation with the person. Now, would I possibly have a conversation telling someone I cut them off? If you try to have this restorative conversation with someone time and time again, I don't think a conversation is necessary. It's just kind of like we've tried. You can say that and say, you know what, I think maybe now it's not
Uh-oh.
gonna work for us. I don't think we're gonna be able to be homies like that anymore. Like we can be cordial, like we can be cool, but I don't know how much more I can do in this relationship.